You said most startups fail because they assume instead of ask. What are founders most afraid to learn when they finally talk to customer?
I think first of all, they are afraid of having rejection. Okay. So that's why a lot of founders, they're actually not talking to customers. So I have seen this pattern all the time when especially first time founders, they're building something, but they're not selling it. And they're not selling it because they're too afraid of having the rejection. So that's why with all our founders in our portfolio companies, we're trying to reverse this pattern, and we always advise them and encourage them to talk to customers as soon as possible, even if you don't have any MVP or anything like even to show. So that's why you need to talk to customers as soon as possible and get the rejections as soon as possible. Because once you have a rejection, now you have some food for thoughts and you can actually refine the next steps based on these rejections. So rejections are very good. This is not something bad. This is very good, especially on the early stages of the company, because this is a real feedback. But
It's
this
another
is
data
what
point.
the
Yeah.
founders are afraid of the most.
That's why I like also on the top, you have in the backdrop, no guts, no glory, which basically is the representation for me, at least. It's like, hey, you need to talk to customers. You always just have in a daydream. But once you get customer feedback, get the rejections in, you get more data. And with data, you can refine your offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So rejections are actual data. It's actual data. And as for this guts and no guts, no glory. So I've got this in Key West, which was very famous for, I would say, entrepreneurship spirit. Like a lot of sailors, a lot of traders, a lot of entrepreneurs. They were just like based there in the. So yeah, it's a little bit like
It's actually interesting because
pirates, yeah, like pirates topic, but it's actually an entrepreneurship topic. So you need to have guts. So then you will have some glory.
if I heard it, I've never heard that connection, but it makes 100% sense because nowadays entrepreneurs, we think about, I don't know, mostly tech based and maybe e-commerce, but something over the internet. But if you're right, end of the day, this is the back in the day. These are the entrepreneurs. These are the ones who took the risk and then maybe got the whole glory as well. So like this is I didn't make that connection so far, but fuck yeah, that's awesome. Like all the sales and all that stuff, they were the people that are now having startups and then starting something new. I like it. Thank you for this. It's cool. Key West. I need to get one of these.
Yeah, absolutely. And entrepreneurs, these are always people who are actually ready to take the risk and get the reward. So and we have seen this also many times when someone works for a financial institution, maybe for decades, like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. But eventually they realize that they have so much knowledge about the industry, they see the gaps, and now they're actually ready to take this risk. And probably it's a little bit controversial with the like startup hype, startup culture when they say you need to drop the college and build your startup. Maybe in fintech, in financial technology space, it's a little bit different. So the most of the successful founders I have seen, these are people like maybe in their 40s with a lot of enterprise corporate experience, but actually they want to build something real, something valuable,
Is it
and
lately also
to
still the
take this
same?
risk.
Or is it like in recent years, have you noticed that was still the same trend that they had in the 40s? Or do you think there is now a trend towards more younger people? Also, how is the AI impacting fintech?
So there are a lot of use cases that are still in development about the AI. And again, there is a lot of hype around the AI topic. I would say there are several very specific use cases. So first of all, everything related to automation. So with the AI, you can automate some routine processes. So that's why we still need to keep testing these ideas. But with AI, you can replace some routine operations pretty heavily. So another use case is It's even not, it's even less about like AI, but more about data. So you need to build the data infrastructure to make your AI work. So that's why we're seeing more and more fintech startups that are focused not like building like some front-end AI-based tools, but more about actually building the data infrastructure and helping financial institutions to build this data infrastructure to be AI ready. So that now you can build actual AI use cases on the top of this data infrastructure.
What
So that's why data infrastructure is another trend we're seeing among a lot of startups on the market right now.
Vince, what makes the data infrastructure AI ready?
So there are multiple things. So first of all, you need to have a very clean data. So you need to have a very structured data. And so one example. So we have one of the founders. They're building the solution for segmentation, customer segmentation in banks. So they need to analyze tons of transactional data. And this data could be it could be like non-structured, so a lot of data points could be missing. So that's why you need to make sure that your data is clean, okay, and that it's well structured.
That makes
I
sense. Because I mean, I've only heard about, well, I guess this is in the US. There's a lot of businesses that clean up data and create a lot of data sets, either now artificially or cleaning up in general. But I've never heard of it for fintech businesses. What's a what's a company that does this currently?
So our client is the analytic marketing. Okay, so they are still early stage startup. They have done maybe like dozen of different pilots with the banks, and I would say these are like pretty successful pilots because their benchmark is. So I would say like they have some benchmarks internally in the bank, like so they construct their customer segments manually, okay, and with the help of this tool they can do this just automatically,
Ah,
okay.
I have a question. So, in general, about in fintech. So, for example, in fintech, we've seen more and more products that become platforms, and some others are staying trapped as a feature. How are you seeing this, and why is this actually happening right now?
Yeah, so I would say this is one of the largest risks that every investor is asking about, whether your startup is defensible against being a feature, okay, with the larger platform or enterprise. So because like when you're building some startup, you probably building it around some use case, some smaller use case, and in many cases this use case could be potentially replicated very easily and pretty quickly by some already established company on the market, some established enterprise. And this is one of the largest risks that any investor is afraid of, so that you will be defensible. So that's why I would say all investors will ask this question. So whether you're building just a feature or a sustainable solution.
You've
Okay.
been working very closely with founders and investors. What would you say are the green and red flags for a founder, or is there not such a thing, especially in fintech?
So do you mean green flag or red flag investing in the founders?
Yes.
So we call this investment readiness. And I would say we have some proprietary scorecard that we developed over the years to understand whether this is the investable company or not. On early stage specifically, there are a couple things. So first of all, and the founder should be coachable. So it could be a little bit controversial, but even if you have a great idea, okay, and if you have tons of experience, but we have found it would be very hard to implement something real if founder is not coachable, meaning they're not ready to listen to feedbacks, not ready to refine. So, they're like very narrow, having some very narrow view. Um, but if you are ready to refine your idea, if you're ready for the feedback, if you're ready to learn from the experiment, so this is what we call coachable founder. So that's why I would say almost every investor, they're looking for the coachable founders. So the red flag would be if they are not willing to listen to feedback. Again, another factor would be the team dynamics. So typically you couldn't launch the startup on your own. So you would need to have someone, as they say, I've learned this from one very successful, like serious entrepreneur who has done like 5 exits already. He calls them like someone needs to be on the hook for money. Okay. And typically it would be a CEO founder who will be on the hook for money. So someone who is actually accountable for the success of the whole company, but you need someone who is responsible for the product, someone responsible for sales, someone responsible for building the tech. So it could be 3 different persons. It could be maybe someone, maybe like 2, 3 persons. So the dynamics between this, especially co-founding team members, is very, very important. So if they have this proactive dynamics, so they understand each other, they're not like arguing like for the sake of just, okay, who is right and wrong, but they could be like discussing what is the best solution. So this would be like more positive dynamics. So that's why I see like a lot of investors, they're trying to understand what is the team dynamics. Is it like a proactive dynamics, or are they stuck somehow in just discussing, but not making decisions?
So when you look at these founders, what separates the ones who are actually building a business from the ones who are just have a smart sounding idea?
So they have this word traction, and sometimes it's, you talk to a founder and they're so focused on the idea and the solution that they are building, and they can describe it for for many hours in a row. But then you start asking some uncomfortable questions, like basically, what's your traction? How many pilot clients do you have? How much money they paid you? Do you have signed agreements, or is it just like some feedback from them? So is it like a tangible traction? Do you have any tangible traction or not? And these are like uncomfortable questions. And founders, they're like, in many cases, what I have seen, they are trying to avoid these questions, just not answering them. Like I'm asking, like, okay, how much money have you earned to the date? Okay, I have a large pipeline of clients, so I would probably sign a new client like in a month or something, but they're not answering the question. So I think it's so founders need to acknowledge, okay, so my traction is that, and my experiments are that. So I will test this and these ideas, and I need to pitch the clients, and I need to get the real feedback, and I need to sign. So not just talking to clients, but I need to sign something. So once I sign something, once I will get some money for my solution. So now this is a real traction.
So hard facts. It's
So
all about hard facts. It's just the money. You just got the money when the money's in the bank. You just need something that is actually enforceable by law.
yes, absolutely. And another trend related actually to AI, it's not about like what end solution you will deliver to the end clients, but it's more about how we use AI to build the startups. And now you can use all the AI tools to build the MVPs pretty quickly. So we have, I would say we have reduced the cost of building MVP maybe 5 times, 10 times comparing to something we had like 5 years ago. Okay. And now, when we can build the MVPs very quickly, so the question is not like how we will build it, but is it sellable? Okay. And now you can test all the ideas, all the features, all the use cases much faster. And this is basically the disruption that is happening. So now the founders, with all the AI tools available, they can experiment, they can test, they can build, and then sell as fast as possible and get the real feedback much faster than like 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
Would
So
you
I have a
s- So
Vince,
would
I
you
have a
say now
question.
that building the product getting the distribution or surviving regulation is the hardest thing in fintech right now?
So getting the distribution or survival the regulations.
Or product?
So good question here. It depends what kind of what kind of use case you're building. I think that regulations, frankly speaking, is an overcomplicated topic. There is a lot of hype around regulations. So certainly regulations matters, but I don't think this is like a huge problem right now. So I think distribution is still a much bigger problem for any startup. And what we're seeing also is that for B2C startups, it's very, for early stage B2C startups, it's very, let's say, cash heavy to build the distribution channels from scratch. So that's why we see that the more efficient way, especially on early stage, is to find the channel partners. So for B2B, for B2C startups, like whatever model you have, you need to find the partner. You need to find the partner who already would have a user base, a client base that you actually need,
So
and then
basically,
partner with. Mhm.
would you say, what do you recommend? Basically, we call it the not distribution founder, but basically founder which has as a co-founder or more just to partner up, meaning, hey, because we've seen it more and more with YouTubers as well as bigger businesses that they partner up, giving shares to these distributors or these influencers. Or would you rather just say, hey, you get a cut, like a 30% cut of revenue, like an affiliate?
Yeah, I'm talking about the affiliate, about referrals. I'm not talking about like equity partners. So more like a channel partners who would already have the user base you need, and you can sign some kind of revenue share agreement with them. So they will get some share of the revenue, yeah, like some percentage. Also, they could be interested not only because of the money, additional money or additional revenue stream, but because they will bring additional value for their existing clients.
Okay. Fintech is something that I'm super curious about because I mean, Lucas and I have been building businesses already for 8 years now, but it's mostly was in gaming, and other niches. So I'm super curious to see, what are these channel partners? What do they look like? What profile do these people have? Like, are these, I don't know, finance influencers? Are these bank CEOs? What what is the range there? What is the one that you connect with?
Yeah, so it could be like that. So the most successful fintechs we're seeing, they're selling something for established financial institutions, okay? For banks, for credit unions, for wealth management companies. And typically, it will be hard for the early stage startup to get through the procurement, okay? Because any established financial institution, they will have the procurement channels, procurement departments, and you need to get on the approved vendors list to become their vendor. Some of these institutions, they would have something like innovation lab, and you can go through the innovation lab, but not many of them would have such a program. But a lot of them, they have some established vendors. Okay, so they that some system integrators or some platforms or some banking as a service providers who already sell some software to them, and they have some annual renewals, whatever. So basically, you could go to these established vendors who already have the relations with the banks, and they could be potentially your partners. And this is how you can get to the banks and to the other financial institutions. So you shouldn't go like directly to them, but you should go to some other technology company that is already established, and you can offer them your solution. Okay, and you can like have some cost selling agreement with them, and this is much easier way to get the pilot clients, especially with the larger financial institutions.
So you piggyback on basically the reputation of the other client who's already has a relationship with a bank or financial institution.
Yes, yes, that's much easier, especially if you can. And look, these established vendors, they are tech vendors. So they would understand the value of your solution much faster and much easier than some procurement from the bank. Okay. So
So in
that's
this
why
kind,
it's a pretty smart way to get to the financial institutions.
do you have trouble when you convince first-time founders to do that? They're like, "Oh, but they might copy my idea," or something like that. What do you tell them that? Because if they're like, "Look, but this is another tech company, they're offering a service. If I give them my service now, they're gonna copy it."
Yeah, so I had the conversation the other day with the other investor, and we were talking about, okay, you need to build some defensible moat, as they say, meaning that, okay, you need to build something that is that will be like maybe some proprietary patented idea of yours, solution of yours, something that is not replicable. So again, all investors there, like they would be asking, what is how, how defensible is your solution and how quickly you can replicate it. But this investor told me that the moat is not the case anymore. So the case is how fast you can move forward, how fast you can experiment. And basically, this is the core competence of any startup right now. Not like, okay, I will build something that is very defensible and nobody else could now build something like I have built, but actually how fast I can experiment and how fast I can refine and come up with some new solution. So that's basically the most defensible strategy that we have discussed on the market.
Why is it stupid in fintech to have the mindset of burn, like burn at all costs, meaning burn your funding and everything as soon as possible, go all for growth? Why is it not the best way in fintech?
Yeah, so why, okay, so why you shouldn't like spend all your costs as soon as possible? So very simple. So basically, again, there is a very there is, I think, a pretty efficient strategy to have like some resources in the reserve, okay, and basically not to move too fast, okay, because if you're moving, like if you're burning your resources too fast, so at some point of time you can, and you're not getting like traction as fast as you can get it. So that's why when I say, yeah, you need to be able to experiment as fast as possible, okay, but you need to be smart here. So you need to, even on the early stage, you need to have the return on investment, okay. So that's why if you're just burning your costs without return on investment, okay, so probably you're not doing something properly. So that's why you should always have some reserve fund. And if you're like burning the money too fast, so and you're like running out of money, you should stop at some point of time. Okay? Maybe refine your approach, okay, and be very smart about how much you're actually burning. So that would be also defensible strategy. And also another interesting idea, so red flags for the founders. I would say every founder, when they start the business, they would need to have at least 24 months of money to cover their living expenses. So then you can be very focused on building your startup, not thinking about, okay, if I should get back to employment or should I get back to some consulting. And if you have like less than 24 months expenses, so you will be just very uh, let's say anxious about this option that, okay, now I need to think about how to earn money for living to cover expenses of my family, but not actually on building. So that's why, and this is back to the question about the burning the resources. So you need to have some foundation, like, and you need to be very smart about, like, if you have finance to cover your expenses, to be built on the top of that.
So what's the, like, talking about burn rate, what's the biggest mistake you see founders make when it comes to making that burn rate? Like, is it hiring engineering too early, too many, or even hiring engineering too cheaply? Not going for the senior developers, but getting 3 junior ones.
Couple things here. So first of all, you need to have some traction you need to have some proof of like solution market fit or even product market fit before you start hiring the full scale team. Okay, so that's why you need to validate your solution against the market. So once you have it, once you validated the demand for your solution, then you can start scaling and start hiring the team, start burning more money. So do not burn too much money before you validated the whole idea and the whole solution. So as for the mistakes, like when on the scaling stage, once you validated your idea, solution, and then like you have some product market fit here. So yes, hiring the wrong people, I would say this is the number one mistake. And it's not only about like whether they're cheap or whether they're expensive or whether they're like junior or senior, but it's more about like just not the right fit to the roles you actually need. So meaning that you can, for example, hire a chief revenue officer who is more like a strategic person who can set the strategy, but probably they're not very good in executing the strategy. So
What
maybe at this point of time, you just need some junior BDRs, business development reps, who can actually just, set up calls for you, and that's it. So that's why it's not just cheap versus expensive, not just senior versus junior, but it's about the right competence, right, for the right roles.
why would you say what is most common delusions first time fintech founders have? Like, because when they're normal startup founders is one thing, but if you're a fintech founder, what is the delusion?
So first-time founders, they don't have some blueprint yet. And the biggest delusion would be that they know everything. So that's why we highly recommend for early stage founders, for first-time founders, to have someone, some mentor, the best if it would be investor, who would provide this blueprint, how to build the company. And the delusion is basically about what actually they're building. And typically they're not building the software. They're building the company. They're building the business. And they have never built the business before. So they could be very good experts in their market, in their niche, understanding, everything about like bank regulations, but they know very little about how to build the business. So that's why I would say this is the number one delusion, thinking they know everything and focusing on just building the software and selling the software, not understanding that they're actually building a business as a system that should have repeatable processes, repeatable sales, repeatable innovation, and that they need some kind of blueprint. And for that, they would potentially need kind of mentor, operator, who would help them with this blueprint. And I would say we here at INSART, which is FinTech Business Studio, we do have such a blueprint, and we act as the, let's say, operational support vendor for the founders, building the software, executing the go-to-market strategy, and also helping the founders with the strategic roadmap and also with the investment readiness blueprint.
Would you take an equity for that? Equity share, or how does it actually work? Because it's an accelerator or is it a studio? Because you move from an accelerator to a studio, right?
Yeah, so it could be a mixed approach. So we typically dive deeper into the situation of each founder and what stage they are, what competences they have already in their team, what is lacking, and depending on that, we will come up with some kind of acceleration that we will help them to execute. Speaking about like whether it's equity or not, so we have like a hybrid approach. So we would invest something in them. It would be some portion would be equity, some portion would be just cash, some portion would be like revenue share.
So I've heard, well, I saw also on your LinkedIn, like INSART has had multiple sessions and it already has been there for a lot of years. So what made you actually be like, what was the first thing why you started INSART when you were the first time founder back in the day?
So I started INSART more like a software outsourcing company, helping fintechs to build their software. So my passion always was about tech and finance. I grew up on the crossroad of computer science and, let's say, financial and economic study. So I always was a tech guy, interested in everything related like to computers and how they operate. But from the other hand, I was always interested not only like, okay, I know computers, but how the whole society operates. And how the economics works. And then I understood that actually the finance is the backbone of any society and on any economical system. So that's why, started to learn more about the finance. And I say like finance, like finance and money is like a blood of every economical system and society. So that's why at some point of time I understood, okay, how can I merge this, like my passion in technology and software and my interest with the finance, and that's why I ended up working with the fintech companies.
That's awesome. So was INSART your first business that you started?
So basically, INSART is a business that was started by my father. So I took over the INSART after I graduated from the university. So I acquired it from my father. So the INSART that days it was a Ukrainian-based company, and I brought it internationally. We have incorporated in the United States, and we have focused on the United States markets since 2015. So since that time, I'm very focused on helping founders and advancing fintech founders that redefine finance and like to build some software tools that will help you with your finance.
Have you ever had any Y Combinator alumni that you invested in?
So we have helped one of the Y Combinator actually venture partners to build his startup,
That's it.
but we didn't have the alumnus yet.
Nice. I like it. I have a question regarding fintech. Right now, if you were to just graduate from college again, what kind of business would you build in fintech right now?
I will tell you guys, if I would graduate from college now, I wouldn't build a business. I will work for some financial institution, especially in some customer facing role, maybe for like 5 years to get the experience, to get the right connections, to get more understanding about the market, about what are the problems and how the whole system works, meaning how the whole financial system works and how the businesses works. So because when you are first time founder, you're making so many mistakes just on your own, but not replicating some existing blueprint. So that's why for anyone who are graduating from the college and they're dreaming to become the founders, it's probably controversial a little bit, but I would advise not to found the business, but actually to work for the larger financial institution to see how it works and maybe exit in 5 years. And then with all this background and knowledge, start the business. And I have seen that this type of founders, especially in fintech, they're more successful than someone who are trying to build some business just after the graduation from the university.
What has working with fintech companies and working in business taught you about pressure, uncertainty, and making decisions when you don't have enough information?
I would say that now in the world, you don't have uncertainty at all. So you can hardly predict what would happen like in 1 year, in 5 years. Yes, so you can read a lot of reports and researches. So that's why I think this is a skill we all need to develop, how to predict what will happen and how to make the decisions taken into account that you actually can't predict what will happen going forward. So that's why decision making, not having the whole information in place, it's a skill. It's a skill that you need to develop. And again, at some point of time, you need to take the risk. And this is what entrepreneurs would basically do. So you need to take the risk because you don't have all the data, you don't have all the information. But you need to take the risk, you need to act, and you need to get some outcomes, even negative outcomes, and then refine and then act again. At some point of time, you will start growing. I would say that the biggest mistake here will be not acting at all. Like, just analyzing the situation, just trying to collect all the data, just trying to understand all the trends, how the market behaves, whatever. But you can be just stuck with that, especially in our days when you can't have all the data and all the information.
You kind of answered my next question already, because I was going to ask you, what's a brutally honest opinion that you have, or a piece of advice for an ambitious founder that maybe already has worked 5 years in fintech, and what should they do? But you kind of answered that, unless you have something else, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, you need to clearly set your goal, because they say, okay, you need to dream big so far, but what exactly you're going to achieve? So you need to set your objectives, your goals very clearly, and like in terms of numbers, in terms of what you're going to achieve. So once you have this goal clearly written, okay, so now you can break down it into the milestones and into some specific roadmap, and then into some specific resources, team members, whatever you need to achieve this goal. So this is how you can convert your dream into some specific strategic roadmap. So that's why I will advise ambitious founders not to be afraid to set a very ambitious goals, but they must be very clear and not just aspirational, okay, but basically like inspirational, meaning very clear from the KPI's perspective.
If you had to leave a fintech founder with one principle that matters more than everything else, what would it be? Would it just be clear about your vision, or what would you say?
Yeah, I would say execution. So again, a lot of ambitious people, they can again write down a lot of ambitious goals, plans, and they can talk and brag about that, but execution matters. So someone who is less vocal but more focused on execution, on acting towards their strategy, and then refining the action plan, and then acting again and making decisions faster. Okay, so these founders, they actually win.
Awesome. Vince, last question. Where can people find you?
Absolutely. So people can find me on LinkedIn. So this would be the best way. So you can type Vince Solo on LinkedIn, INSART, and I will be happy to connect with you and answer your questions. And if you have a startup, so let's discuss how we can be helpful.
Awesome. Thank you, Vince. I really appreciate coming on. Highly appreciate you coming on.